Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for March 22nd, 2018. On today's show, we'll be talking about film news, followed by a mailbag segment discussing the future of physical media. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
Senior writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And writer Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Okay, guys, let's jump into the news. Let's start off with Steven Spielberg. There's he's doing press for Ready Player One, and he has come out and said that Netflix movies don't deserve to be nominated for Oscars. They deserve Emmy consideration instead. Chris, is he wrong?
Yes and no. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but I think his logic is a little outdated. The Academy has this rule that films have to screen for a full week in Los Angeles before they could be nominated for any Oscars. And the issue he seems to have is that a lot of Netflix films, like they did this last year with Mudbound, they'll do a quick week-long run in theaters and then they'll qualify for Oscars. And in his mind, it seems to be that if you make a film for Netflix or just a streaming platform in general, you're making it for TV. And so in Steven Spielberg's mind, that makes it a TV movie, not a theatrical movie. So he feels like that shouldn't qualify them for Oscars. They should get Emmy Awards because Emmys deal with TV. And, while I understand where it's coming from, it's a very old school mentality that a lot of filmmakers like Spielberg and, from his generation have, where, if it's not on the big screen, it's not really a movie. And I just don't think that applies anymore. Here and now in the 21st century, streaming is becoming more and more prevalent. And it's not like streaming movies are crap. There's a lot of quality films being put out by Netflix. And I just feel like this is where, the medium is headed, whether, Steven Spielberg likes it or not.
It should be noted that the Academy, I think, requires, a week or two of theatrical run in New York and LA to be considered a movie?
Yes.
A feature film? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's just a rule that has been in existence until now. Obviously, the medium is changing, technology is changing. Okay, let me pose this idea, and I'm not sure I'm behind this idea. I think I'm actually with you guys. What if the Academy created a new award for best television, limited series or motion picture, kind of like the Golden Globes does? Well, I guess they have an award like that, right?
Does the Academy have
no,
like
actually,
that?
They don't. I'm thinking of the Golden Globes. Let me go to Brad. Brad, would you be up for a whole new category of award, like, best television and streaming movie award for the Academy Awards?
I mean, I think it would be interesting if the Academy did have a best TV movie award, but I'm not necessarily sure that it would clear up any of the issues, because some of Netflix's movies, especially if they think that they will qualify for Oscars, such as Mudbound or Beast of No Nation before, they'll play it in theaters. So, I mean, if Netflix wants a movie to be considered for...
Well, I think Steven Spielberg's saying if that happens, that would qualify. Or am I wrong, Chris?
He's saying I think he feels like that's kind of cheating, basically.
Okay.
Where if Netflix, they do these 1 week runs, it's sort of like they're gaming the system in his mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's I like Chris said, I do understand like what he's saying, but I mean, Netflix is going to get around that by releasing the movie in theaters. So I mean, if you make a separate category, I don't know, it could be interesting, but then I feel like we're just opening the door to like creating a bunch of other micro categories that don't necessarily need to be done. And, I don't know, but I think that at the same time, like there are plenty of TV movies that deserve attention. HBO makes incredible TV movies all the time with Oscar caliber performances. So, I mean, who knows, maybe.
I mean, I also think, not that I'm advocating for another category, but, now we're into this era of limited series, they have like, from 6 to 12 episodes that is like one long story, and it's not, a traditional TV show where it has another season. It's essentially, a 10-hour long movie. It would be interesting to see if the Academy could grow to adopt a category for those kind of efforts. But, I guess there isn't enough of them right now for that to be considered, right? But
yeah. Well, plus, Hollywood already kind of recognized that anyway through television, because they do have a category that is just for TV movies and limited series. So it may not be an Oscar, but it's still the same caliber award, I guess you could say.
You're saying the Golden Globes are the same caliber award as the Oscars?
No, the Emmys.
Oh, the Emmys. Okay, yes. Okay. Let's move on to another interesting topic, and that is cryptocurrency, which I know nothing about. I do not own any Bitcoin, but apparently Hollywood is looking towards cryptocurrency for a viable fundraising option for future movies. Ben, what is going on here?
So I sort of posed that question: is cryptocurrency a viable option? And the conclusion that I came to is I'm not fully sure yet, but I think it's going to be much more likely that cryptocurrency is used for smaller films than to raise funds for the next big blockbuster or something like that. So let me back up a little bit. I'm not even going to try to define what cryptocurrency is other than just in the most broad terms, which is it's essentially money that exists in digital form that is not regulated by any particular agency, and it's sort of a crapshoot right now. There's a lot, you guys have probably, anyone listening to this has probably heard all about Bitcoin and all these different things. John Oliver actually recently did an entire episode devoted to cryptocurrencies of his show Last Week Tonight, and I embedded that in the article that I wrote about this at slashfilm.com, and I would encourage everyone to watch that because I think he sort of explains the broad strokes pretty clearly. But the gist of this story is that there is a movie in the works about Nolan Bushnell, who is the founder of Atari, the video game company. And this company called Vision Tree is looking to raise about $40 million through the private sale of what they're calling Bushnell tokens, which is a new digital coin that's named after the guy that the movie is supposed to be about. So it's essentially a new cryptocurrency that they've created, and they're trying to use sort of a crowdfunding approach where anyone can buy into the creation of this movie, sort of like, Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something, and they offer rewards. So anyone who participates will have a small piece of ownership of the eventual movie. They'll be able to vote on the trailer and help select cast members for the film. It's unclear exactly how all of that is gonna work, but that's their plan right now. And so, on first viewing of that information, I was sort of like, oh, this is just another company trying to cash in on a popular trend. Hollywood and other companies all over the world try to do this kind of thing all the time. But the thing that really got my attention here was that Leonardo DiCaprio's Appian Way production company is co-producing this movie with them. So this is not just some, whack job off the street, some crappy little side company trying to do something crazy. This is like DiCaprio's production company has produced, Wolf of Wall Street, The Revenant, Shutter Island, like some legitimate movies over the past few years. And if they think there's something to this, maybe there actually is something to this. Looking into it a little bit more, it seems like there is a new movie called No Postage Necessary. That's the first film that's coming out later this year that's going to be released using blockchain technology. So you can read all about this. I sort of broke it all down in this article at slashfilm.com. But I guess that's the gist of it. That's the information that you need to know right now. So, Peter, what do you think about this?
I don't know, and Nolan Bushnell's involvement in this has me scratching my head because, this is the guy that created Atari, and he helped create Chuck E. Cheese, but in recent years he's had a staggering amount of failures, including this. He created this restaurant chain called U-Wink, which you could play like games against other people at your tables. It didn't take off. All the restaurants have closed. I think maybe even Spielberg at one point might have been involved in that. I could be wrong. But I don't know. I do see a future for kind of a crowdfunding a movie and the people being involved in the process in some way. But is cryptocurrency the way to do it? I know I know Hollywood has been trying to find ways of getting public investors in a movie, but it's the legalities of all this kind of stuff and investing in a movie property is very, very hard to get around. I'm wondering if cryptocurrencies is the kind of like loophole to make it all work.
Yeah, the only thing that I hesitate about is Hollywood is notoriously risk averse, right? Like if they can help it at all, they will make the safe choice every single time because there is a proven blueprint out there that the safe choice works. Anytime anybody in Hollywood takes a chance, it's always very, very risky, and they tend to, sort of circle the wagons and not really do anything too far outside the norm. And cryptocurrency, turning to that, would be incredibly risky because right now a lot of people are losing a lot of money because the markets are fluctuating so wildly because they're not regulated. So the idea that, a huge studio would say, okay, yeah, let's try to, raise $150 million for our new movie through a type of cryptocurrency that has no physical form or intrinsic value in and of itself just seems, it might happen, and maybe 5 years from now, I'll look back on this episode of the podcast and be like, wow, you're an idiot for not having the forethought to see how this could work. But for me, it just seems very risky, and in an environment and an industry where risk is a no-no, it seems like something they won't really grasp fully at this point.
Yeah, I'm reading that book, The Big Picture, which Chris recommended, and it's just giving you a little peek into how Hollywood contracts work and how people are paid. Actors and stuff are paid before the profit even happens. So Hollywood accounting, I'm not sure if I would want to invest in something where a film like Harry Potter might not on paper be considered a success, because of all the weird Hollywood accounting. Let's move on to a little bit of sad news, and that is Meltdown Comics in Hollywood is closing. This is a famous comic book store in Hollywood that has been here for decades and hosted the Meltdown comedy special. Brad, you were a fan of that, and you lived in Hollywood and visited this comic book store and wrote this up for the site. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is a real bummer. It's been a trademark institution for pop culture and various geek sundries, comic books, action figures, and especially comedy. It's just recently announced out of nowhere yesterday that it's going to close. Its last day open will be March 30th. There's no indication as to what's next for the owner of Meltdown, but he sent a letter out, kind of giving his farewell and, saying how proud he was of everything that happened there. Meltdown really became famous because of the comedy shows that came out of it. Kumail Nanjiani and Jonah Ray, when they were far lesser-known comedians, had a show that they hosted there called The Meltdown, and they would bring in all their comedian friends to do various shows there in the Nerd Melt showroom. It became a series on Comedy Central where it was the same thing, just televised. And it's seen so many famous faces come through when they were just starting out and then becoming, more and more famous and getting nominated for awards and becoming movie and TV stars. And it was also the place where a lot of popular podcasts were recorded. The Indoor Kids was one. You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes recorded there. And, of course, the famous Nerdist podcast that was started by Chris Hardwick and launched the entire Nerdist media empire was all began at Meltdown. So this is, it's a pop culture institution. Its influence will still be felt, for years to come. But it's a real shame that it's closed down because it was such a cool, intimate venue where, if you went to a show, you would meet, these cool comedians, and they were always willing to talk to people. And it was such a cool place to go hang out. It's really a shame that it's closing down.
Yeah, when I first moved to LA, I lived literally 2 blocks away from the Meltdown, so I would be there every week buying comics and looking at their toy selection, and I went to a few of those early Meltdown shows, and it was just incredible. And I remember one week Patton Oswalt did I think he was doing an HBO stand-up special, and he showed up there to try out his entire act the week before he went and recorded it. So it had
Another time that someone there was an improv show there, and Robin Williams showed up and did improv with the team that was doing improv that night. Like it was a place where like anything could happen.
Yeah, no, it's really sad, and I'm interested to see what comes of the guy that runs Meltdown. I also know, like, this is a place that like a lot of Hollywood would go to. Like J.J. Abrams would go there, a bunch of the filmmakers and actors. So it's very sad. I hope there's a future for Meltdown in some way.
If you go to the website right now, the Meltdown website, there's an overlay that comes up that prompts you to sign up for the Meltdown newsletter, and it says to sign up for a newsletter to be keyed in on what's in store for the next 25 years of Meltdown. So it seems like he's got something planned, even though the store is closing. So I don't necessarily know what that means, but I guess you find out if you subscribe to the newsletter.
Okay, let's move on to the future of cinema, and that is 4DX has announced that they're teaming with ScreenX to add projection screens around their already insane 4D experience. Chris, you wrote this up for the site. Is this the future of movies?
I hope not, because this is terrifying. 4DX, if anyone doesn't know, it's like a total sensory overload where the seats move and water sprays out at you, and all this stuff happens. And so they're combining that with ScreenX.
I should say on the Slash Filmcast, Jermaine and I did a review of the Transformers The Last Night, I think, 4DX experience. I will link it in the show notes. It's considered one of the funniest episodes of Slash Filmcast. So check that out. Okay, go on.
So they're partnering with ScreenX, which is this thing that wraps the screen around the whole theater. So the projection isn't just in front of you; it's on the walls too. So, it's called 4DX with ScreenX, and there's a video, in the story. You can see it on Slash Film, and the video is upsetting. There's like sirens going off, and the seats are rolling up and down, and it's just too much. And I honestly can't imagine watching an entire movie like this. I just
loved when you were writing this up for the site in our Slash Film Slack channel. You commented that you were getting a panic attack from watching the video.
The video is very upsetting. There's a lot of noises and there's smoke and it looks like a nightmare. And I honestly, I tweeted about this. I tweeted the link to the story, and someone responded, and they were very high and mighty, and they were like, this is the future. You need to get with it. People always judge technology too early, and I'm sorry, but I can't imagine sitting through a whole movie like this. It just seems too much. And maybe I'm wrong, but Christ almighty, this looks upsetting to me. I can't imagine seeing like a whole movie this way.
I mean, I can tell you I've experienced two movies in 4DX, Transformers Last Night and San Andreas. Neither were a good experience. The motion seats and all the effects are kind of overdone. I could see if they used them more subtly, it would be interesting, maybe. But you're paying like something like $25 or $30 a ticket for this. So I think they think the audience needs like to have effects every minute. So it's kind of like, we're going to throw the whole kitchen sink at you. I've also experienced this ScreenX technology. A few years ago, I saw Maze Runner in it, and certain scenes in the movie would take over the sides of the movie theater. But it was kind of like created in this video game engine. Like they didn't shoot the scenes in that aspect ratio. So it was kind of like these, almost like, things inspired by what you were seeing on the screen, extensions to the sides. So like, as long as I think movies aren't shooting stuff for the sides, I don't see the point of this. Brad, is this something you would want to see a movie in?
This is going to be the only way that I want to see movies from now on. And I also want them to start making it more intense. When there's a fight scene, I want a boxing glove to pop out of the scene in front of me and punch me right in my face.
They do have a technology of a thing coming into your back, like they have like these pinpoints that come out and hit you in the back. So like at one point during Transformers Last Night, like spoilers for that movie, but Optimus Prime gets stabbed and like a thing stabs you in the back.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my God! Yeah, then this is right up my alley. I can't wait. I want to feel pain while I'm watching movies. I want to be sweating. I want to be uncomfortable. I mean, if you're in a movie theater anyway, there's a good chance if you're at a crowded theater, you're probably going to be uncomfortable anyway. So you might as well feel like you're part of a movie and get punched in the face and stabbed in the back and feel like you're immersed in the movie, right? I mean, that's what we're all going to the movie theater for.
Brad, why would you want to be comfortable? You could do that at home. You want the movie theater experience.
Yeah, but if I do it at home, then I'm just going to be watching a bunch of Emmy-nominated movies on Netflix.
Coming full circle. Okay, let's move on to our next story, and that is Chris Evans. Is this a spoiler? I mean, he's going out and saying this publicly.
I don't think it's a spoiler. I don't know.
Potential spoilers for the Avengers series coming up. I mean, but the actor's going out in public and saying this, so skip ahead a few minutes if you don't want to hear this. But it's all over my Twitter feed, so I don't know how you would avoid it. So Chris Evans has officially announced he's leaving Marvel after Avengers 4. We kind of probably guess what this means, but Ben, tell us about it.
Yeah, so in a New York Times profile, Chris Evans has confirmed that Avengers 4 is going to be his last movie with Marvel Studios. The excerpt from the New York Times piece says, last year, Evans filmed back-to-back the final two movies, Marvel movies, for which he is under contract, Avengers Infinity War due in April, and a sequel planned for next year. For now, he has no plans to return to the franchise. And then they quote him saying, you want to get off the train before they push you off. They said that Evans expects that planned reshoots in the fall will mark the end of his tenure in that familiar red, white, and blue supersuit. So that news actually comes 8 years to the day after Chris Evans was confirmed to star as Steve Rogers / Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's kind of interesting timing there. We know that he originally signed up for 6 films, but then ended up extending his contract to 7 because Infinity War was originally planned as 1 movie and then split into 2. So it seems like he's done for good right now. We know that
does this mean that he's going to get killed off? Like, because
right,
I feel like that's like the, if we're reading between the lines, that's what everybody's saying here.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a good bet, especially with the way that things work in the Marvel Comics, where both Sam Wilson, who is Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, and the Winter Soldier, who is Bucky Barnes, played by Sebastian Stan, have taken on the mantle of Captain America in the comics over the years, notably after the real Captain America died in the comics. So I think the option is certainly there for Marvel to do that. And I think we know that Sebastian Stan has like I think he signed a 9-film contract when he came on board, and he has a lot of movies left on that contract. So it's probably a wise guess that he would take up the shield. But it's not officially confirmed that Captain America is going to die. There's still a chance that he could ride off into the sunset and actually survive this whole thing and pass the shield to somebody else. But I would say, with as much as the filmmakers are talking about how the next 2 Avengers movies are going to change the MCU and have dramatic consequences, it seems like a death for Captain America is forthcoming.
I still think that it's not going to happen. I feel like he wouldn't go public with this comment. I think I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, but I could see something happening what?
I was just going to say, do you think that he is that this is an elaborate troll job, that he's actually going to extend his contract and keep coming back? Or
no, I think he plans on this being the end of Captain America. But I mean, how many times have superheroes been killed off in the comics and come back? I know it's different with an actor, but I'm betting if he was killed off, they wouldn't have him speak publicly like this about the end of his contract. I don't know. Marvel is so, they keep everything so close to the vest, and I feel like they would have a plan of telling the actors what to say to the media. And I don't know. I'm not saying that this isn't going to be his last outing as Captain America. I just feel like I wouldn't read too much in between the lines here. But
Okay.
But I know nothing, so who knows? Let's get to our last news story, and that is casting for the Men in Black reboot. Brad, you wrote this up a couple days ago. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is pretty cool news for anybody who liked Thor Ragnarok, because the Men in Black reboot, which already had Chris Hemsworth on board to star in the movie that will be directed by the Fate of the Furious director F. Gary Gray, he's getting reteamed with Tessa Thompson, who played Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok. And they made quite the duo in that movie. They were great, both action-wise and comedy-wise. So getting them back together for Men in Black sounds like a fantastic idea. What's interesting is that apparently the details that have come out so far, they're pretty scarce, but the hope is that this movie will be more of an ensemble piece than like a buddy cop sci-fi comedy like the original trilogy was with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, because they want the franchise to be a little bit more global this time. Because if you think about it, the original Men in Black, everything was centric around New York. And if you're dealing with an organization that deals with aliens from all over the universe or galaxy, it would be kind of too coincidental to have everything happen in New York all the time. Kind of the same way that, you know, the monsters in Power Rangers always attack Angel Grove first. It's like, just go somewhere else. The Power Rangers aren't there, dumb shit.
I mean, the ghosts always attack New York City in the Ghostbusters, Brad.
I mean, but that was only twice, though. So there's a little bit of leeway there, you know. So and that we can explain that.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah.
You know what would get me interested in this movie more than I am now? If F. Gary Gray was not directing this movie, and instead Taika Waititi was directing this film.
I would love that too. I think that would be awesome. He would be the perfect person to take it on. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily excited about F. Gary Gray doing it either, but having Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson back together is a pretty enticing prospect for me.
I think we can all agree that more Tessa Thompson in our movies is a good thing. So, but let's move on to our mailbag. You can send questions to the mailbag, peter@slashfilm.com. Mark B. writes in from London that I'm a guy who has a huge collection of movies on Blu-ray and has, to date, shuttered digital downloads. Although, obviously, I stream films when convenient, my question is, how long do you think the studios will remain committed to producing physical media? Are they in a hurry to make use to use only digital, or does having physical media suit them? My concern is that when discs stop being manufactured, then the players will stop being updated/improved too, and then my library will be on borrowed time. So basically he's asking what is the future of physical media. Brad, I know you've talked about in the past, like, you are a physical media junkie.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, I'm a junkie. Like, I'm not buying every single Blu-ray and DVD that comes out. Like, I gotta have it. But if I'm buying a new movie to add to my collection, I always buy it on Blu-ray, and that's just how it works. Because, I mean, with the way digital rights can get kind of shifty, and movies can, potentially disappear from streaming services and digital download services, they can be kind of shaky there. And I always want to make sure that I have a copy of my favorite movies on hand. And there's still a little bit of a quality difference between digital and Blu-ray anyway. I like the idea of having a movie in my hands, that it's my copy. I can always play it. I can take it to a friend's house if I want to borrow it without having to deal with, like, logging in on somebody else's, device or anything like that. And most of the Blu-rays I buy come with a digital copy anyway, so I get the best of both worlds. And I also like the physical representation of my movie library. I like being able to go over to my shelf and, like, look and glance to figure out if I want to watch something, or having friends come over and look through and be like, and just wanting to pick one out. And it's not as easy or fun, I guess you could say, to do that when you're just scrolling through your digital library.
Yeah, see, when I had a DVD collection, I had over 3,000 DVDs. I had acquisition disorder, which means that, like, I had to own everything. If I owned, like, one season of a TV show, I needed to own all the seasons of a TV show, and it basically took over my living room. Now I have fully embraced the online video libraries. Not that I buy. I don't buy that much, actually. I rent a lot nowadays. Chris, I know you are on the edge of you have a streaming column for the site. Do you still buy a lot of physical media?
Yes, well, I also get a lot of stuff for free because I review a lot of it. So, but physical media is important to me. I much prefer Blu-rays than streaming or the digital download. I don't really like the digital download because I feel like you forget about it. Like, I have stuff on digital download and I forget I even have it because I can't like see it. I need to be able to see it on the shelf. But I understand when people don't care about that much, and I know studios would love to move away from it. I mean, the studios do this thing now where they release the digital download, in some cases, a full month before the physical copy comes out, just because they care more about that, because it's cheaper to do it that way. It costs money to manufacture the Blu-rays, so if they can save $1 or $2, they prefer to do that.
Yeah, no, I do think that Hollywood wants to go, digital because they make more money. There's no manufacturing process. They're not giving away 50% of the sales to, a retailer of some kind. But guys, we got to look at this realistically. If we look at the boom of DVDs, that came around this time of, PlayStation 2 came with the DVD drive. I don't think the next generation of video game systems are going to have a physical media drive. I don't know a lot about video games, but, we're going to start to see the disappearance of physical media drives in our homes. I don't know. I think that could lead to less physical media. Physical media has been on its way out anyways. It's been kind of dying down, but now, at the 4K Blu-rays and stuff, but I don't even have 4K. I'm so lazy. I don't want to even go to a Blu-ray case and take the Blu-ray out and put it into the thing and switch to TV. I can just go to my remote and press play on something. Ben, do you have any thoughts on this?
I also am a big somebody who appreciates physical media. I don't buy things nearly as often as I used to because there's just so much to see. From a personal perspective, I would love it for the studios to continue producing this just to give me the option. And I'm wondering, Chris, you're talking about how much they probably are losing on manufacturing these physical discs and the cases and all of that stuff. Do you think that they would continue to produce Blu-rays and stuff like that just for the people who prefer, because that's got to be like an increasingly shrinking number of people, right? The people who prefer physical media. Do you think they would still continue to spend the money to serve that audience and then maybe just try to make up the difference in re-releasing, different versions of the film on Blu-ray?
I'm going to say I don't doubt that eventually studios are going to just call it quits on Blu-ray. I don't know if it's going to happen like in the next few years, but I could see like 10, 15 years from now of them just pulling the plug on Blu-ray. There are always going to be like boutique distributors like Criterion or Shout Factory, but I absolutely do think eventually studios are going to just realize it's more profitable for them to just release things digitally and just do away with Blu-ray entirely.
I was afraid you were going to say that. That's depressing.
Well, you got to think as the amount of copies shrink, the price costs increase to create like these things. Not just the physical cases and the discs and stuff like that, but also like to master them for those discs, create the menus. All the money that goes into that stuff becomes split across less people. So yeah, I don't know. And also, but here's the thing that could save you guys. Let me put the thing on the table that like is the thing that we all hate, net neutrality. Okay. If net neutrality really goes through and our internet service providers can start charging us whatever they want for bandwidth and stuff, then all of a sudden streaming TV content and movies is going to cost us, we're going to be paying by the gigabyte or by the megabyte, who knows, something like that. Then maybe people will go more towards physical media because, maybe it would be cheaper to buy a disc. Do you guys, that's like, I'm kind of like being like, guys, we can save physical media, but at the cost of the internet.
Right. Yeah, that sounds like a terrible world that I don't want to live in, but I guess at least we'll have physical media still.
Okay. Wait, so I have one last question for you guys. You guys are all kind of physical media guys, and the thing I hate of the loss of physical media is we're getting less special features, and I think the studios can actually track, how many people watch that audio commentary, and then they start taking away, behind the scenes feature, like documentaries and stuff that, like, probably because they've realized the mass majority of public don't watch those things, and that kind of makes me sad, because that's the stuff I loved about DVDs and Blu-rays. But okay, the thing I wanted to ask you guys is, say tomorrow physical media goes away, will you buy movies on streaming, or is it you're just going to rent stuff? Like, I'm wondering, like, what are your thoughts on that, Ben?
It's interesting because I wrote an article, I guess this was last week, about Netflix doing this thing where they were trying to gamify the idea of binging streaming shows for kids, where they created this tech called Netflix patches, and it was like a little lock icon that would pop up on certain Netflix shows, and it would unlock and reward audience members with these patches, but it didn't actually give you anything. It was just like a way to sort of, I guess, hit that, to try to lure kids into watching more TV and like unlocking these things as just a game, essentially. But I was speculated in this article about how Netflix should actually incorporate this technology by rewarding users with the ability to unlock special features that aren't there on Netflix right now. But I would love to see them actually put this technology to good use and, deliver actual value on the idea of these patches. So I would love to see something like that come through. I don't know.
That's also interesting, because the idea of, like, you have a special feature on the creation of everybody's seen Last Jedi now, right? The creation of Yoda for Last Jedi, and that special feature doesn't show up on the digital release until you watch the movie.
Yeah, it's sort of like protecting you from spoilers. I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other conversation we could have about whether or not who is making that decision and whether that's the right one. But yeah, the idea of that being an option that's available is very appealing to me, and I wish Netflix would do something like that. And maybe they would if physical media goes away entirely. Maybe those kinds of things. Maybe there would be such an outcry from the kinds of people who, like us, who still love watching that stuff. Maybe Netflix could create a whole another section or something devoted just to that material.
Okay, I'm going to go to one last person. That's Brad, because I know you have a huge media library. Okay, tomorrow, same question. Tomorrow, physical media is going away. How will you proceed in the future? Will you buy stuff on digital, or will you be more want to rent stuff?
I mean, I'm fairly choosy about what I buy now anyway. So I mean, if I'm forced to buy movies and it's only on digital, like, I'm not going to be stuck up about it and be like, no, I'm not buying anything. Because like I said, most of the Blu-rays I buy come with digital copies, and sometimes they're convenient, especially when you're going on a trip and on a plane, you want to download something to your iPad or something like that. So I mean, if that's the way it goes, I'll be disappointed. But yeah, I mean, if I have to start buying movies only digitally, then the market has spoken at that point, and I just have to do that if I want to keep watching the movies that I like.
You know what? I think the more I think about the like, even if it becomes kind of like a niche thing, physical media, like, I think companies like Mondo, who produce like these vinyl records for soundtracks of movies, there'll always be a market for like a company like that to license a movie and release it on physical media. It just might be that you might be paying, $50 for the latest, Star Wars movie on 8K Blu-ray Mondo edition.
I think, well, and plus there are other companies too who are starting to release more of the lesser celebrated and probably far less in demand titles that usually, don't get big releases in stores and things like that. Shout Factory releases plenty of titles like that. Like I can't imagine like tons of people other than cinephiles ourselves are clamoring for that all those Roger Corman titles, but there's a whole bunch of those that are going to go into production on physical media soon, and there's plenty of niche movies and cult classics that always find an audience, and so you might have to pay a little bit more for them, and they might be more rare than most movies are today on physical media. But yeah, like you said, I feel like there's always going to be some place that is willing to sell movies in a physical manner.
Okay, I think that brings us to the end of Slash Film Daily for today. We've run over, so I'm not going to do our goodbyes. But you can find this podcast every weekday on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send us your questions for the mailbag, peter@slashfilm.com, or just your comments, concerns, feedback. Please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.